So today we are graphing inequalities on a number line. Remember, an inequality is just a math statement that's kind of like an equation, but instead of stating two things are equal, we say they're not equal, or one side's bigger than the other. And that's why we use the symbols like greater than, less than or equal to, all right? And we graph them on a number line to show all the possible values that the variable can be, because it's not equal to just one thing, it can be equal to many different things, okay? But before we graph it, we have to remember two key things about how we represent it. We put an open circle, that means a circle that's not filled in, if the variable cannot be the value, and we put a closed circle if the variable can be that value. Okay, so we'll do a couple examples so you can see what I mean by this. All right, so here's our first example. X is greater than 3. Okay, so we're going to represent all the possible values that X could be if it's bigger than 3. So the first thing you have to ask yourself is, if X is bigger than 3, can X actually be 3? No, because X has to be bigger than 3. So since X cannot be that value, we put an open circle at 3. So on the number line, I'm going to put an open circle at 3, okay? And so notice I didn't fill it in, I just put a circle there, because it could be really close to 3, but it cannot actually be 3. And X can be bigger than 3 though. So it could be any number bigger than 3, like 4 or 5 or 6 or anything in that direction. So what we do is on the number line, we draw an arrow to show that this is every possible value X could be. All right, so anything close to 3 or bigger. So it could even be 3.00000001 could be X, because it just has to be bigger than 3, but it cannot be 3. All right, here, let's do another one. X is less than or equal to -4. Okay, so in this case, can X actually be -4? In this case, yeah, because it's less than or equal to. So in this case, it can be the value, so we do a closed circle at -4. So that means a filled in circle on -4. So notice how I filled it in versus the last time I left it open. And X is less than or equal to -4, so that means it's anything smaller than -4. So the arrow is going to go this way. So notice, this represents every possible value X could be. Okay, and that's the tricky thing about inequalities is X can be a variety of different numbers. It could be an infinite number of numbers, but they're all from -4 that way. Okay, let's see this next one. X is not equal to 1. Okay, so this is tricky, and it looks like it's a little bit different than the previous two. X can't be 1. All right, so since X cannot be 1, we're going to put an open circle at 1, because we know X can't be that number. Now, if X can't be 1, can it be bigger than 1? Well, based on this, yeah, it can. Can it be smaller than 1? Yeah, it can. It just can't be 1. So if you think about what the graph of this one's going to look like, X can be bigger than 1, so we're going to draw an arrow in the greater direction. But X could also be smaller than 1, so we're going to put an arrow in the smaller direction too. And that's what the graph of that one's going to look like. Notice, it could be any number bigger or smaller than 1. It just cannot be 1. It's kind of an interesting graph. All right, last one. This one says -2 is less than X, which is less than or equal to -5. So this is a combined inequality. There's two parts to it. So you kind of have to do it in sections. So here, let's do this section first. X is less than or equal to 5. Okay, so can X be 5? Yeah, because it's less than or equal to. So I'm going to put a filled in circle at 5. Now it also says X is less than or equal to 5. So it has to go in the smaller direction. So my arrow is going to go this way. But before I fill that in, I know there's another part to this inequality, so I'm not going to draw on that arrow just yet. Now let's look at this side of the inequality. X is bigger than -2. Can X be -2 if X is bigger than -2? No. So it's a open circle at -2. Okay? But it is bigger than -2, so the arrow would go in the positive direction. So notice, now we can kind of put these two together. We knew from this side, x has to be smaller than 5, so the arrow's going this way. This says x has to be bigger than -2, so it has to go this way. And notice, now we figured out all the possible values x can be. It could be any number in between -2 and 5, not including -2, but including 5. And that's what the graph of that combined inequality is going to look like. So notice there's no arrow on this one because it's not going to go on forever in one direction. It's between these two numbers, including 5. All right, so those are some good examples of inequalities. So remember to pay attention to whether it can be the number or it cannot be the number, and then which direction is the arrow going, or maybe it's going in both directions, or maybe it's between two. All right. So hopefully you found this video helpful. If you did, please hit that like button. Also subscribe because it really helps us out. But with that being said, good luck on your math, and I will see you next time.